Straight to breaking news, and we're hearing just in the last few minutes that the professional wrestling and entertainment star Hulk Hogan has died.
Behind Hulk Hogan's iconic handlebar mustache and flashy bandanas lies a mansion full of secrets the FBI never expected to uncover. What they found might just rewrite everything you thought you knew about the Hulkster. In this exclusive deep dive video, we peel back the velvet curtain of one of wrestling's most controversial legends, including his death and all the secrets revealed afterwards. How exactly did he die?
Medics were called to his home on Clearwater Beach just before 10 o'clock this morning. They say the nature of that call, cardiac arrest.
And did the way he lived his life affect his legacy? Buckle up, because what we're about to reveal is sure to blow your mind. Hulk Hogan's shocking death. On the morning of July 24, 2025, under the brilliant blue skies of Clearwater Beach, Florida, the world of professional wrestling was jolted by a thunderclap of reality. Terry Gene Bollea, the man immortalized as Hulk Hogan, the bleached blonde behemoth who once seemed as indestructible as the myths he helped create, was gone. That day began like any other on the Gulf Coast. But then, at precisely 9:51 a.m. Eastern Time, the Clearwater Police Department received a call. The call was a medical emergency involving cardiac arrest. First responders rushed to the scene, and there, they found Hogan unresponsive. Despite their swift intervention and the valiant efforts of paramedics who reportedly worked on him within minutes of arrival, Hogan was later pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. It was only days later that several news outlets would obtain the formal cremation approval summary report from the Pinellas County Forensic Science Center, revealing what many had feared but few had confirmed. The official cause of death was acute myocardial infarction, a term as clinical as it is devastating, more commonly known as a heart attack. Though early reports had already hinted at cardiac arrest, the full truth was more layered and a lot more sobering. Hogan's death, the documents revealed, was not an isolated incident of sudden heart failure, but rather the final note in a long history of medical complications that had long been happening in his life. Among the causes listed was a history of atrial fibrillation, a condition that is characterized by erratic electrical signals in the upper chambers of the heart, leading to an irregular and rapid heartbeat. According to the Mayo Clinic, atrial fibrillation increases the risk of blood clots, stroke, heart failure, and, tragically in Hogan's case, heart attacks. But the grim tally didn't stop there. It was also revealed that Hogan had leukemia, specifically chronic lymphocytic leukemia, also known as CLL. This form of cancer is a stealthy infiltrator that slowly corrupts the very foundation of the body's immune system, the white blood cells and the bone marrow. Hogan had never publicly disclosed this diagnosis. He had opted instead to wage this battle in silence, away from the roar of arenas and the unblinking eye of cameras. A spokesperson for the Pinellas County Forensic Science Center later clarified that the cause of death was certified by Hogan's primary care physician, and that the medical examiner did not open a separate case. What this meant was that there was no indication that there were signs of foul play or suspicious circumstances. The story, medically speaking, ended with clinical precision. Yet for millions across the globe, the emotional chapters had just begun. Hogan had always been more than a wrestler. He was the man who transcended wrestling rings and entered living rooms as a cultural phenomenon. Debuting in the late 1970s, rising through the wrestling circuit in the 1980s, and cementing his legacy through the 1990s and early 2000s, he became an international icon not through brutality, but charisma. His deep, gravelly voice could ignite a crowd. His red and yellow persona, with the ripped tank tops and the handlebar mustache, became shorthand for superhero masculinity. But now, that towering figure had been stilled by the betrayal of his own body. What makes his death even more haunting is how recent reports had painted a far different picture. In June 2025, E! News reported that Hogan had undergone successful neck surgery, and friends close to the legend, including longtime companion and wrestling manager Jimmy Hart, insisted as recently as July 22nd that the man was doing phenomenal. Hart's words, which now seem cruelly ironic, encapsulate the eternal optimism that fans associated with Hogan. He was, after all, the man who told us to train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins. And we believed him. So where then does the myth end and the man begin? Well, despite having a body built for battle, Hogan's health had been on a slow decline. Decades of punishing wrestling matches, the relentless travel schedules, the ringside stunts, and spine-shattering body slams had unfortunately left long-lasting effects on his body. He'd had multiple surgeries, including knee replacements, spinal fusions, and hip operations. And yet, he kept the damage under wraps, as if maintaining the illusion of strength was itself a duty. His absence from public appearances since May. For fans, the loss is incalculable. Hogan's reach was intergenerational, and he seemed to have lived a very fulfilling life. Stay tuned to learn how the legend lived to the fullest. The fulfilling life Hulk Hogan lived. Born Terry Jean Bollea on August 11, 1953 in Augusta, Georgia, Hulk Hogan would become synonymous with sheer spectacle, charismatic bravado, and world-spanning fame. The Tampa, Florida youth was a high school baseball star who was very athletic in his early life, until a broken arm at age 16 crushed his professional baseball prospects. But he not only had athletic dreams, he also had creative ambition because he studied music, played bass in a rock band, and ultimately abandoned both college and instruments in 1976 to pursue pro wrestling after being discovered by Hiro Matsuda's rigorous training regimen. By August 9, 1977, he officially debuted under various ring names before settling on Hulk Hogan, and over the coming years transformed from a territory-level contender into the towering face of World Wrestling Federation, also known as the WWF, by late 1983, when he signed with Vince McMahon's promotion and began the phenomenon now known as Hulkamania. Hogan's rise through the wrestling ranks was not merely a matter of charisma or physical dominance. It was a well-timed evolution that coincided with Vince McMahon's ambitious plan to take the WWF national. Terry Bollea, as he was born on August 11, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia, had dabbled in regional promotions during the late 70s and early 80s, but it wasn't until 1984 when he returned to the WWF after a brief stint in the American Wrestling Association that the Hulkamania phenomenon truly exploded. On January 23rd of that year, Hogan defeated the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden to become WWF World Heavyweight Champion, officially launching a new era in professional wrestling. At the core of Hulkamania was an ethos that appealed deeply to children and patriotic American audiences alike. Hogan's character, righteous, loyal, prayerful, muscle-bound, wasn't just a wrestler, but a moral compass in spandex. Say your prayers, take your vitamins, and believe in yourself became a slogan plastered on t-shirts, cereal boxes, and lunch boxes throughout the 1980s. As cable television exploded and WWF programming found its way into millions of homes, Hogan was the unquestioned face of the movement. There were other wrestlers, of course, Randy Savage, Jake the Snake, Roddy Piper, but none possessed Hogan's uncanny ability to carry the main event, sell out arenas, and move merchandise in the millions. By the time WrestleMania became the WWF's tentpole event in 1985, Hogan was already a household name. But it was the synergy between his character and this annual spectacle that cemented both as icons. In 1987, at WrestleMania 3, he did what seemed impossible. He lifted and slammed Andre the Giant in front of what WWF claimed to be over 93,000 fans at the Pontiac Silverdome. Though the actual attendance figure is debated, most estimates today place it closer to 78,000. The image of Hogan hoisting the 520-pound giant remains one of the most replayed moments in sports entertainment history. The pop from the crowd was thunderous, almost primal, and for many fans, that moment crystallized the theatrical purity of pro wrestling. Good versus evil, hero versus monster, heart versus muscle. Throughout the late 80s and early 90s, Hogan remained the centerpiece of the WWF's programming. He dropped the title to Andre in a controversial match in 1988, only to regain it shortly after. Then came WrestleMania 6, held on April 1st, 1990, in Toronto's Skydome, where Hogan passed the torch to the Ultimate Warrior in a rare, clean loss. That night was electric, and though Warrior's reign wouldn't last, it showed that Hogan was willing, at least temporarily, to take a step back and allow someone else to shine. But Hogan's grip on the industry didn't loosen for long. In 1991, he was once again champion, defeating Sergeant Slaughter in a match heavily themed around the Gulf War, a creative decision that showed how deeply entwined wrestling and politics could become. This was also the period where his public image began to splinter slightly. Scandals surrounding steroids in the early 90s reached Hogan's doorstep. In 1994, he admitted on the Arsenio Hall show to using steroids in the past, and though he claimed it was only for therapeutic reasons and prior to their being banned in WWF, the damage to his squeaky clean image was evident. Rather than retreat, Hogan switched lanes. That same year, he signed with World Championship Wrestling, also known as WCW. In July 1994, he won the WCW World Heavyweight Championship by defeating Ric Flair at Bash at the Beach, and for the next 2 years, he resumed his role as the All-American face. But by 1996, fans were growing tired. Chants of "Hogan sucks" grew louder, and merchandise sales were slowing. Then came the masterstroke. At Bash at the Beach on July 7, 1996, Hogan did the unthinkable. He turned heel. Aligning himself with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, the former WWF stars who had just jumped ship to WCW, Hogan dropped a leg on Randy Savage and revealed himself as the third man in the now infamous New World Order, or NWO. His once bright red and yellow was replaced with black and white. The cheers turned to boos, but the fans kept watching more than ever before. Hogan, now Hollywood Hogan, had reinvented himself completely. His villainous run as the NWO's leader led WCW to dominate television ratings for nearly 2 years, toppling WWF's Monday Night Raw in viewership and solidifying Hogan's ability to remain relevant no matter the narrative. It wouldn't last forever, though. By the early 2000s, WCW folded, and Hogan returned to the now renamed WWE in 2002. This return sparked a nostalgic wave. That same year, at WrestleMania 10-8, he faced The Rock in a generational clash at Toronto's Skydome. Though scripted for Rock to win, it was Hogan who received the louder ovation. Fans in attendance flipped the narrative in real time, chanting his name, cheering every move. For all his years in the ring, it was a rare moment where even his opponent had to acknowledge the aura of Hulkamania. That's not all. Hogan's personal life also reveals a man whose public persona was matched by intensely lived private chapters. On December 18, 1983, Hogan married Linda Marie Claridge, beginning a union that would last nearly 26 years and produce 2 children, Brooke, who was born May 5, 1988, and Nick, who was born July 27, 1990. With Linda and their children, Hogan starred in Hogan Knows Best, a VH1 reality series airing from 2005 to 2007, which provided an intimate lens into his family life, fame, and fatherhood. Yet, under the spotlight lay turbulence. In 2007, Christiane Plant, Brooke's former music collaborator, claimed she had an affair with Hogan, and Linda filed for divorce on November 20, 2007. The divorce was finalized in 2009, with Linda receiving over 70% of liquid assets and significant company ownership as settlement. Hogan later revealed that the end of this marriage left him in deep depression, even contemplating suicide before being pulled back by support from figures like Layla Ali. Coming out of that darkness, Hogan found a second love. He began dating Jennifer McDaniel, a makeup artist, in early 2008, became engaged in November 2009, and was married on December 14, 2010, in a private ceremony in Clearwater, Florida. Their relationship endured for over a decade, but ultimately ended when Hogan announced on February 28, 2022 via X, formerly called Twitter, that they had divorced the previous year.
WWE star took to Twitter to announce that after 11 years of marriage, he and Jennifer McDaniel have gone their separate ways, and he has a new special person in his life.
Yet the narrative arc did not stall. In July 2023, during the wedding reception of actor Corin Nemec, Hogan proposed to Sky Daly, a yoga instructor and mother of 3, declaring that she was crazy enough to say yes, and they wed on September 22, 2023, in an intimate ceremony in Florida. Their relationship became Hogan's third marriage and the one he held until his passing in July 2025, and Sky remained a steadfast companion in his final months. Yet Hogan was no static myth. Even as controversies swirled, including his battles with steroids allegations, the infamous leaked sex tape lawsuit against Gawker, he persistently embraced faith, sobriety, personal transformation, and renewal. He sued Gawker in a landmark case, initially awarded $140 million, later settling for $31 million, reclaimed his standing after his reinstatement into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2018, and publicly declared religious devotion, at times even being baptized alongside Jennifer McDaniel in 2021. Beyond championships and television, Hulk Hogan's life was fulfilling insofar as it reflected reinvention. He rose from modest origins and early obscurity to become an international colossus, and left behind an impressive legacy. Keep watching to find out what this legacy is. The legacy Hulk Hogan left behind. While headlines naturally revisited Hulk Hogan's legendary feats inside the wrestling ring, being his titanic presence in WrestleMania, his role in defining Hulkamania, and his championship accolades, the deeper truth lay elsewhere. The legacy he left behind stretches far beyond steel chairs and championship belts. It's in the communities he influenced, the friendships he built, the impact he had on generations of people, and the complicated relationships that defined his life. Hogan lived out his later years in Clearwater, Florida, a place that became his home base, sanctuary, and anchor. Locals didn't just see him as a global superstar, but as someone who had always been around. Before the red and yellow gear, before the television fame, there was just a young man from Tampa with big muscles and bigger dreams. Long before the ring lights, Terry Bollea was a familiar face at Regal Lanes, a bowling alley on Armenia Avenue. Wrestler Jody Simon, better known as Joe Malenko, recalled seeing Hogan sneaking in to catch a glimpse of his father, the legendary Boris Malenko. At the time, Hogan was merely a wide-eyed fan, a local boy mesmerized by larger-than-life athletes. No one knew he'd one day become bigger than them all, but despite becoming a household name, Hogan never distanced himself from the community that helped shape him. He threw elaborate birthday parties in Tampa, where he usually invited wrestlers and families. Wrestler Natalia Neidhart, daughter of the late Jim the Anvil Neidhart, remembered attending those parties every year. She recalled one memory where, after her father passed away, Hogan personally called her, sharing heartfelt stories about wrestling in Japan and what her father meant to him. But there's more. Beyond the ring, Hogan cultivated a close circle of friends, some from the wrestling world, others from entirely separate walks of life. He was known for checking in with old friends, even those who had retired or faded from public view. Many described him as deeply loyal. Jerry Briscoe, a retired wrestler from Tampa and one of Hogan's early mentors, shared a moving tribute following his death. Briscoe remembered helping Hogan get started, guiding him through the unpredictable landscape of early professional wrestling. But it wasn't just nostalgia that bonded them. Their friendship endured decades, surgeries, setbacks, and success. Briscoe recalled one of their last conversations. Hogan, with typical humor, told him, that he had 13 operations so far, and he made a joke about how Briscoe never told him about this part of the business. That laugh, that good-natured grit, that was Hogan. Despite the celebrations of his character in public spaces, Hogan's personal life wasn't without turbulence. His relationship with his daughter, Brooke Hogan in particular, has long been described as strained. Though once close, even appearing together on the reality TV show Hogan Knows Best, the father-daughter bond frayed over the years. Public disagreements, differences over career choices, and the pressures of fame placed stress on their relationship. Brooke herself admitted in interviews that going about life under the Hulk Hogan spotlight came with a huge emotional toll. There were periods where communication between them became sparse. Hogan, for his part, remained private about the rift, rarely addressing it in interviews, but reportedly expressing regret to close friends. As was mentioned earlier in this video, no life that spans 7 decades and unmeasurable fame escapes unscathed. Hogan faced huge public backlash in 2015 after a leaked tape revealed him making certain remarks. The fallout led to his contract with WWE being terminated, and he was scrubbed from their Hall of Fame page. Even removed from the ring, Hogan remained ever present in American culture. His image adorned cereal boxes, action figures, and lunchboxes. His voice filled animated shows. Children dressed up as him for Halloween. Hulk Hogan was an icon. But Terry Bollea, the man behind the muscle, was a mosaic of contradictions, triumphs, missteps, warmth, and reflection. He made mistakes and tried to make amends. He wore the weight of fame and still sought the simple joys of friendship, community, and human connection. And that, more than anything, is his legacy. So, do you believe that Hulk Hogan, despite his shortcomings, lived a fulfilling life? Let us know in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.